Here, I think.
One business takes on many challenges. But when they're beyond what one can solve, it'll take more. Each one pitching in to form seamlessly linked solutions. And with a partner to innovate and collaborate, we can create better experiences than we ever could alone, to become more valued than we'd ever be on our own. Because there's nothing greater than working as one to make an impact in people's lives. Redefine our greatness. Build business.
Very nice that you said that. Yeah, and also the
Isang karangalan po na tumayo sa inyong harapan para sa makasaysayang araw ng pagpapasinaya sa Gustillo ni Dr. Valenzuela. Today is extra special. Not only are we celebrating Gatchallian and our 25th charter day, but today is a culmination of 400 years of transformation as we start our year-long exciting activities for the city. Originally built in the 19th century, the house of Dr. Valenzuela is one of the most important structures in the city, which symbolizes our national heroes' courage, leadership, and selfless service to his fellow men.
Ito po ay isang katibayan na ito ay napakahalaga sa buong lungsod ng Valenzuela City. Sa mga tao po na naging instrumento upang mangyari ang makasaysayang araw na ito, ang aming taus-pusong pasasalamat. Alam niyo po, ngayon ay sineselebrate natin ang 25th year Charter Day ng Valenzuela City. Totoong malaki ng pagbabago ang naganap sa lungsod ng Valenzuela City. Pero sabi nga po, tumitingin sa pinagkakasyan, hindi makakarating sa
On behalf of the Valenzuela family, express our sincerest gratitude to Mayor Rex Gatchallian. Palakpakan po natin. Secretary Rex Gatchallian, Senator Win Gatchallian, and the rest of the local government for ensuring the completion of the museum established in this corner.
yun. Pero ano yun? Ito kasi bukas ito eh. Mount Carmel po to, no? Mount Carmel.
No? One.
Ito yung sa
What's the other?
sa project. So, pero ang pare dyan, si Adirong at Makati. Oh.
Your safety is
Ang mga alam ko mga simbahan ng ano ko sa inyo. Baka mag-jumbo-jumbo. Mali po lahat eh. Iba, di ba? Parang noon yung sa Mount Carmel, may nagpunta ng Cubao. Pero hindi ko maipupunta siyang sabay-sabayan kasi baka mamaya malito yung mga tao. Parang nangyari noon. Mount Carmel, Broadway, Quezon City. Tapos may pumunta ng Mount Carmel dyan sa lugar nyo, dyan sa Project 6. Para hindi maguluhan. Sige. Isa-isahin ko lang muna. Sige. Send ko ngayon.
Dito mo na lang yung pagkano. Wait lang.
your safety is our priority.
Okay na? Okay na. Stop-share na ako. Okay ka. Ano ka? Ano ka?
Your safety is our priority. This video will guide us on what to do in case an emergency happens while we are in AIM. In case of fire, follow the race procedure. Rescue anyone in immediate danger. Alert others by activating the alarm system and use fire extinguishers if safe to do so. Contain the fire by closing the
Ayaw niya.
the room and evacuate the building using the nearest exit. Remember, do not use the lift or the elevator. In case of earthquake, execute drop, cover, and hold. Drop under sturdy desk or table, cover yourself, and hold on. Be alert, and watch out for falling objects. Once the shaking stops, exit the building and follow your evacuation plan. You are on the third floor, a Boites tech space. From here, we have 3 exit stairs. Just follow these directions until you reach the ground level. Our security team will be there to guide you to the evacuation area. Your designated evacuation area is at the employee parking area along Gamboa Street. Once you are out of the building, do not go back. Wait for our instruction if it's safe to return or not. If you're hurt or injured, or know someone in need of medical attention, there will be medical personnel at the evacuation area and they will help you. If you have other concerns, you may approach any of our security personnel and they will assist you. Thank you for your cooperation. Stay safe, everyone.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang magiging, pero sa sinakalan,
Philippines, Mr. Guillermo M. Luz.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. Well, first of all, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome here to the Aboitiz Tech Space, the Asian Institute of Management. I'd like to also welcome all our Zoom participants and our Facebook Live participants. It's going to be an interesting afternoon here talking about a topic that we don't get to talk about too much, but which I think is very important for cities. Before I start, I'd like to just recognize a few of the people in the room. I believe we have Bacolod LGU present here today. Thank you and welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to also welcome Mr. Farid Zakaria from the Embassy of Malaysia, the Deputy Head of Mission. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. And to Raya del Corpus National Housing Authority. In the room or downstairs? There you are. Okay, thank you. Thank you for joining us. This is our fourth lab of the year, and it's going to be, as I mentioned, an interesting session today. When people are asked about what makes a livable city, most think about things like infrastructure, services, transport, health, or education, or other aspects which make a city life comfortable. It is all that, of course, but much more. Today we focus on other aspects of city life. I hesitate to label them extras because at Liveable Cities, we think they are essential to cities. And here I'm referring to arts, heritage, and culture. And that's why we have today's topic of why museums matter. Museums are more than just places that house art and history. They're the heartbeat of our cities and our country, capturing the essence of who we are and where we've come from. They protect and celebrate our shared stories, traditions, and values, making sure that these important pieces of our culture are passed down through generations. But museums do much more than just preserve the past. They play a vital role in the life of a city, offering a space for lifelong learning and bringing people together. They're like community hubs where everyone, regardless of background, can connect and feel included. I can tell you that for us in the Liveable Cities team, we like visiting museums. We're on a current roadshow through 9 cities, and we make it a point in all cities to visit a museum, at least one museum, if not more than that. So beyond their cultural importance, museums can also contribute to the local economy. They attract tourists, create jobs, and support nearby businesses. And perhaps most importantly, they inspire creativity and encourage critical thinking, helping to shape engaged, informed citizens. As our cities continue to grow and change, museums will become even more crucial. By preserving culture, supporting economic growth, and inspiring innovation, they help ensure our cities remain vibrant, inclusive, and resilient, paving the way for a sustainable future. For this lab, we will explore places that highlight the transformative impact of museums on our cities and country. We'll examine the strategies, innovations, and best practices that have made these cultural institutions central to urban development. And I must say, I'm very happy and honored today to have such a blue chip panel to discuss museums. First, we will, actually I'm going to keep him last to speak, save the best for the last, I guess. It'll be Mayor Wes Gatchallian of Valenzuela City. And I will properly introduce Mayor Wes later, but this is the mayor's second appearance at Liveable Cities. His first one, he talked about intelligent cities. Our other speaker will be Mariles Gustillo, Senior Director at Ayala Museum. Runs the museum and will be able to tell us more about what this little museum brings to the nation. And then finally, we're really honored to have Jeremy Barnes, Director General of the National Museum. And this is a museum. In case you didn't know, this museum has 21 sites around the country. And I'm happy to say I've been to 3 outside Manila. Okay, aside from the Manila locations, we've recently seen the museum in National Museum branch in Iloilo, and it's it's situated in the old provincial jail. So I can tell you this is a beautifully repurposed, redesigned building, a provincial jail turned into a museum. I've also been to the National Museum Visayas branch at in Cebu, and this is an old customs house, if I'm not mistaken. It's by the waterfront. It's the old customs house. Beautiful museum, a beautiful building, and a beautiful collection. And then finally, we've been to, most recently, to the one in Bohol, in Tagbilaran, which was a bit run down many years ago when I first visited it. It's been moved to the old provincial capital, and it is a beautiful museum. Among other things, it documents the Bohol earthquake and its impact on the churches of Bohol and how they were rebuilt, actually. So this is a nice museum to visit. So I'm going to lead with Jeremy Barnes as our speaker. As I mentioned, he's the director of the National Museum of the Philippines and chairman of the Southeast Asian Ministers of Education Organization, or SIMEO, Regional Center for Archaeology and Fine Arts. Now, this little bit of information I was not aware of. Jeremy holds a Bachelor of Commerce from the University of Queensland and a master's degree in economics from De La Salle University. So maybe that's an interesting story how Jeremy ended up from economics to the National Museum. But anyway, to talk about the National Museum's role in safeguarding the Philippines' cultural legacy and its impact on national identity and community cohesion, let's please welcome Jeremy Barnes.
Thanks very much, Bill, and good afternoon to everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here at AIM, and AIM is part of the reason of my life's journey from banking through to economic research when I worked here at AIM in the late 90s, and then eventually to public service and cultural work. It's great to be here at the Asian Institute of Management. It's been some years, and I'm really impressed by this tech space, Aboiti's tech space, and the new look of many of the public areas. So for the students here at AIM, I hope you're having a great experience here, just like I did when I worked here for 5 years as a policy analyst. I wrote cases for the faculty in CDM, Center for Development Management, and CCIP Policy Center back in the day. So it's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Mr. Luz, and it's great to be with friends in government, such as Mayor Wes Gatchallian, and esteemed colleagues in the museum sector, such as Ms. Mariles Gustillo. So yeah, it's a great topic, why museums matter, and to be invited to talk about the National Museum, introduce my institution to you, and kind of give you an insight into the breadth of work we do. It's really my pleasure, and of course we're hoping for a great conversation and interaction later on. So this opportunity allows me the pleasure of sharing with you insights on a lot of the work we've been investing towards the growth and expansion of our national museums, which has really been the focus of my tenure as Director General since 2010. And to start with, let me kind of go through the basic details of the agency. We're considered a trust of the government, so that is somewhere in between a regular government agency and a government-owned and controlled corporation, and we're mandated to serve as the premier educational, scientific, and cultural institution. We were established on August 12, 1887, through a decree issued by the then Queen of Spain as the Museo Biblioteca de Filipinas. So actually last Monday, the other day, was our 137th anniversary, and we share that anniversary with the National Library of the Philippines. As you can see, we were founded as one institution, the Museo Biblioteca. And so since then, 137 years later, we stand proud, I think, in front of all of you as stewards of the Philippines' diverse natural and cultural heritage. We operate under our charter, which is in the form of Republic Act 11333, approved in 2019. And that was enacted basically to give us, as well as our duties and responsibilities, the certain privileges and operating parameters. So for any of you who are interested in how institutions are put together, I'd encourage you to look up RA 11333, the National Museum of the Philippines Act. We foster and contribute to nation building by establishing, managing, sustaining museums around the country as part of our national network. And not only, of course, do we have these buildings, but we are committed to providing and sustaining universal access to the collections that are housed within. At this stage of Philippine national development, to afford the greatest extent of access to our museums, we managed to operate under a free admission policy and to promote museum development beyond our agency in the public sector, in the private sector, academic sectors. We also offer all of our assistance and services free of charge. And for that, we are these days quite well funded. And I'll take advantage of Mayor Gatchallian's presence by also thanking him for his support when he was Congressman Gatchallian. And of course, it's well known that his brother Sherwin is in the Senate, and I'd like to shout out to all the House representatives and senators who support the National Museum. We're about to go into our budget season again. And at this stage of the cycle, we're putting together our wish list, and the National Museum plans to ask for a lot as we continue to not only expand but upgrade at the same time. We were talking earlier about immersive and experiential directions for museums. What's really taking off and expanding museum audiences is this trend towards immersive experiences. And that kind of direction entails a lot of investment. And we're wondering among ourselves in the museum sector, who's going to do this? Who's going to take the lead in promoting this new type of museum? That's not necessarily collections-based, not necessarily what many of us, especially older generations, are used to. But we're also talking about QR codes and all kinds of technologies, apps, of course. And I'm happy, now that I'm segueing, to share with you that we're experimenting with all of those. We're pioneering our museum app, use of QR codes, trying to see if there's really a demand for that kind of that and other kinds of modalities. But I digress. Let me go back to the basics, where currently, as you can see on the map, our National Museum has an expansive network of 21 component museums nationwide. We use the phrase component museum. We're trying to get away from the idea that the main museums are in Manila and everything else is a branch or an extension or just an appendage. Because I think in the national government, we're really moving towards equalizing away from National Capital Region and to really leveling up our investment in the regions around the country and kind of equalizing or making things more equitable and putting things on and psychologically putting things on a more equal footing. So we use the term component museums, and all the museums that you see there, from Batanes to Jolo, literally, are indispensable components integral to what the National Museum as a whole is. Whether it's a site museum in a remote cave system or island, like we have locations in such places as Banton in Romblon, or at the Tabon Cave in southern Palawan, to what perhaps is more relevant to this group, to some of the larger cities that are actively trying to be competitive, progressive, and more livable, such as most recently Cebu, where we had Mr. Luz and lots of his colleagues at our inauguration last July last year. Next up for our network is our new museum in Davao, slated to open in late November, early December. Really depends on the schedule of our VIPs. Iloilo, as was mentioned. Clark is coming up for 2026. Baguio also is in the pipeline, but it's not there because it's still under development. So we definitely agree with the idea that great museums are intrinsic to great cities. But beyond the cities, we're also there in smaller towns and in places where there's no one at all. Because it's our duty to protect sites such as caves, archaeological sites, and then in towns and cities, built heritage sites. So our network there is divided organizationally into 4 major clusters: Northern and Central Luzon, Southern Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Of course, even though we're getting away from the central branch kind of distinction, the core of our operations is the National Museum Complex in Manila. And there we have our 3 core museums that represent the scope of our work. So we have the National Museum of Fine Arts, the National Museum of Anthropology, and of Natural History. And the vision of having this complex was set as early as the mid-90s, when President Ramos sat down with my predecessor, the then director, and really worked out a vision for a world-class National Museum complex. And so The National Museum of Anthropology, in what was the Department of Finance building at the time, was the first to be inaugurated in 1998 for the Philippine Centennial, on June 12 of that year, followed by, once the Senate and the other offices such as the Sandigan Bayan, the Office of the Ombudsman, moved out, the National Museum of Fine Arts was able to be inaugurated in 2001. And then most lately, after the Department of Tourism moved out, the Natural History Museum was inaugurated in 2018. And so it took about 25 years for FVR, then former President FVR's vision to be realized. And tamang-tama, after 2018, our new charter was passed, RA 11333, in 2019, that, if you read it, provides a roadmap for further development of the National Museum to flesh out this complex even further and to have at least a presence, at least one presence in each of the 17, now 18 regions of the country. This central hub is where most of our collections are housed when they're not on display, and where most of our researchers are located, even when they're not out in the field, and where most of our museum policy and practices emanate. Though that is changing slowly as we devolve to the 4 museum regions. As the headquarters of our 8 curatorial divisions, so again, I don't want to just list everything, but it's important that you kind of know what we do. So our 8 curatorial divisions are under natural history, geology and paleontology, botany and zoology. Under anthropology, we have our archaeology division, maritime and underwater cultural heritage division, and our ethnology division. And under fine arts, we have fine arts, as well as architectural arts and built heritage. So those are the 8 curatorial divisions that maintain their own collections, that together is the national collection, have their own research agendas, and so on and so forth. Exhibition programs, public programs, and so on and so forth. So the National Museum of Fine Arts, as you'd probably imagine, presents the Philippines' vibrant artistic legacy. National Museum of Anthropology serves as a repository of the material culture of our many ethno-linguistic groups. And natural history, of course, demonstrates our mega biodiversity and geological heritage through the display of zoological, botanical, geological, and fossil specimens. So guided by our charter, our central office is at the helm of developing policies and procedures that enhance and, in certain cases, pioneer, together with our colleagues like Ayala Museum and quite a few others, pioneer museum practices and innovation. We love seeing each other, going to each other's museums and events, and learning from each other. And there's a lot to learn. We can't cover everything everywhere. Lots of us go to different kinds of conferences, different kinds of meetings, and then when we get together, we get to talk about it, and it's usually very fun as well as instructive. We establish linkages, of course, beyond our community here in the Philippines with our global counterparts. We ensure that we apply, or we learn first, then apply prevailing museum standards and best practices. Again, in none of this does the National Museum believe we have a monopoly on learning and knowledge and how to apply these. We're very much a community of peers, whether we're talking of a private museum of national scope like Ayala Museum, or a local city-level museum like the one that Mayor Gatchallian will undoubtedly talk about. We're all kind of see each other's museums as equivalent. There are so many different types of museums, and you won't find many of them in the National Museum system, because we all have given ourselves a different job to do. In the National Museum, our job has always been to look after stuff. All the archaeological artifacts, all of those ethnographic arts and crafts, things like the spoliarium and other paintings, priceless treasures of all kinds. And so number one job for someone like the National Museum is to look after them and then present them. Other museums choose to do different things, to talk about, perhaps to present stories rather than objects, to talk about all kinds of things, or to have no collection at all and to have all these beautiful LED screens that plunge you into the world of Van Gogh or something like that. There are so many different kinds of museums, and all of them matter, and all of them, of course, if their audience is based in a city, all of them contribute to the livability of cities and the quality of life. I have lots of slides, but I won't dwell on them all. I just wanted to make a quick survey of our network. Our next slide shows our northern and central Luzon cluster, so where we are at the moment. A lot of our museums serve also as research hubs. So if you go back, our museum in Peña Blanca, Cagayan, that's also a field station from where the research team that discovered the Homo luzonensis worked out of. That's also a mini museum where people can go and also helps with the conservation of the Calao Cave. Kiangan, Ifugao is in the middle of one of the UNESCO World Heritage terrace systems. Kabayan Benguet also serves to protect the burial caves with the so-called fire mummies. And Vigan, Magsingal, these also support the World Heritage sites and the World Heritage town of Vigan. Yeah. Next. Let's go on to the Southern Luzon cluster. So from the Angono, Binangonan petroglyphs that are just outside Metro Manila to the Cagsawa ruins in Daraga Albay, our Guyangan Cave Site Museum. That is the location of the well-known artifact of the Banton cloth. This is a 15th century piece of abaca, woven abaca with ikat design that is the oldest textile in the Philippines, and that came from a burial shroud that was recovered in a burial site in the Guyangan caves. And so that's important enough for us to be there to protect and continually study that site in Romblon. And in Boac, we have a beautiful museum that is a kind of a different model in that it's really focused on the community in Marinduque and plays a part in the calendar, like in Holy Week, when Marinduque, of course, opens its doors for the Moriones Festival. You'll find if you visit during that time, the National Museum has a prominent role as part of the community there. Let me skip forward to Visayas. So we've mentioned already Iloilo, Cebu, and Bohol. We also have a beautiful museum in Dumaguete City. And we are working on museums that will open next year in San Jose Antique and in 2026 in support of the Sugar Heritage World Heritage nomination of Negros and Panay. We'll be opening a museum focusing on sugar heritage in Victorias City in Negros Occidental. So one thing I'd like to say at this point is our component museums also foster economic growth. I think Bill mentioned, what museums are known for, at least potentially, in terms of fostering economic activity, the multiplier effect, the Bilbao effect. These are all quite well known. But one example where we had a kind of it was more than we expected was in Cebu, Bill. We opened that, and you were there. We were gauging the demand in Cebu as mostly being from the many foreign tourists, but from the day we opened, there was this unprecedented audience that we discovered of locals, such that the new museum averaged 2,000 people, almost 2,000 people a day in its first year, and 3/4 of that were young Cebuanos from the Metro Cebu area. So that's another lecture in itself. We're still parsing exactly what we've managed to contribute to in Cebu City. But let me jump now to Mindanao. We have our museums in Butuan, in Zamboanga, in Holosulu, and as I mentioned, soon in Davao. So at least Davao, I'm not sure if Zamboanga is included in the livable cities, but definitely our museums have a big role to play in those places. So let me just close by saying, having gone through a long period of significant transformation, the National Museum's mission has evolved to articulate the breadth and seriousness of its mandate in preparation for changing times and paradigm shifts across generations, not least in terms of technology. So our 4 main strategic pillars are universal access. We really believe the Filipino have a right to some basic level of access to culture and heritage and to learn what it is to be Filipino. We believe in that as a baseline. We're dedicated to sustaining our programs, and of course, as a government agency, you should all expect that the National Museum is committed towards good governance. And moving forward, something we're really looking at, and this will be a big part of our budget request for next year, really taking significant steps towards digital transformation, something we're looking at and stressing about. We at the National Museum have been more devoted to engaging local communities in developing their own cultural heritage efforts. At the same time, one notable case earlier this year was the reopening of our site museum at the Tabon Caves in Quezon, Palawan. And together with the community, including the indigenous peoples in the area, we will be working on the World Heritage nomination so that our Tabon Cave Complex, which may be administered by the National Museum but is being promoted as a collectively managed site, will be working towards its inscription at UNESCO. Also another case recently is in Taal, Batangas. We recently completed our restoration of the Taal volcano eruption damaged shrine of Our Lady of Kaysasay. Again, a case study I'd be happy to talk about on another occasion of how to work with local stakeholders and do this in a community-based way. It's very much part of how we approach things these days. And I will end it there. I have quite a lot more, but if we can go to the last slide. Let me share our new vision statement. So in terms of the role of National Museum in not only in livable cities, but in a livable nation, we really envision ourselves as a world-class and socially responsive institution that preserves legacy, fosters a profound sense of Filipino identity, and shapes a progressive and sustainable future, including through our cities. And so thank you, Bill, for inviting us here. And we hope now and on any other occasion to contribute to this topic. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeremy. I like the point that you made that there are many museums, many types of museums, but that all museums matter. Okay? I'd also like that part where it's all about protecting our heritage, promoting our national identity. I think these are so important as a country, actually, when we take a look and compare ourselves to countries around the world. And I'm happy to see that there are 21 in the system, 21 museums, so we still have a lot to go through. We've only done 3, plus the ones in Metro Manila. So we have a lot more ground to cover. But Jeremy, I want to assure you in the National Museum that I think with the private sector's help, and Liveable Cities is really a partnership with groups like Globe and the League of Cities, and today with the Asian Institute of Management. I think we'll help where we can. And as you said, in trying to bring more technology, for instance, into the museum experience, I think that's something that is worth exploring. So definitely this won't be the last time you'll be hearing from us. And I know I see you once in a while at the Ayala Museum events, especially the concerts, I think. We get to see each other in the concerts. So let me jump then to Ayala Museum. And let me introduce our next speaker, Mariles Gustillo. So Mariles is the Senior Director of Arts and Culture at Ayala Foundation and Senior Director of the Ayala Museum. She joined in 2012, and she has revitalized the museum through dynamic programming, successful exhibitions, and integrating it with the Filipinas Heritage Library. She oversaw the museum's renovation, completed in 2021, and led key international collaborations, including with the Asia Society Museum and the Museo Nacional del Prado. And I might add, I think the Louvre in Dubai, if I'm not mistaken, which has borrowed some items from Ayala Museum's gold collection. In 2023, she really brought the Philippine art scene alive with a landmark exhibition featuring a Juan Luna painting that was last seen 132 years ago. I actually went to see it just before it closed because I was so busy I didn't get a chance to see it until it was near closing, and it really attracted such a long lineup and a big crowd to take a look at this Juan Luna painting and the Juan Luna exhibit. Before Ayala, Mariles had a 25-year career in advertising and marketing, last serving as president and CEO of Lowe Philippines. So here we have another example of someone who's jumped from one field to another, but used her skills in one field and leveraged it into another. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's please welcome Mariles Gustillo from the Ayala Museum.
Hi, good afternoon. I think you're beginning to see a pattern here. You don't have to be in art and culture to run a museum. Actually, at the end of the day, it's running an organization, and the skills that Jeremy and I bring to bear is interesting. And so I always tell that to young people you have to have an innate bias, I think, for art and culture. You have to like it as an individual, and get really a kick out of running an organization that allows more people to share your passion. So, I was fascinated listening to Jeremy, and I said, oh, dami niyang ginagawa. I run one museum, and he's setting up 21. But I think it's good to start with a definition of terms, okay? Whereas Jeremy said, it's a whole network of museums. Ayala Museum is an art and history museum established 50 years ago by Filipinas Foundation, now known as Ayala Foundation. Its mission was to empower Filipinos with a profound appreciation for our traditions, art, history, and culture as a prerequisite for social progress. Remember, we come from a foundation. So there was a very holistic point of view of how a foundation of a corporate nature could align with the national interest. And it continues today. While this mission as I said, prerequisite for social progress, while this mission has remained steadfast, it has also evolved to stay relevant and responsive to the times. So at this point, I'd really like to give a major shout out to anyone who's ever worked at Ayala Museum in the past 50 years, including Bill, who had his stint of doing his bit for Ayala Museum. I mean, it's been, how should I say, it's been kept alive by a whole slew of people over the years, and we can't thank them enough. And so, yes, the museum has been consistently around for a long while, which requires, I can tell you, some doing. And there was so much to say about why museums matter, Bill, and I didn't quite know where to start, knowing what I know is required, until I came across this quote by Daniel Weiss, this former CEO of Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, who encapsulated the essence of museums beautifully when he said, "For a great many people, the art museum is a place of consequence because it offers, through its collections, exhibitions, and programs, its physical presence and accessibility, and its community, opportunities for exploration, personal enrichment, fellowship, inspiration, pleasure, and with accumulated experience, memories." And I think that's an aspect that maybe I'd like to focus on this afternoon. You can build museums, but will people come? that is the question. And for people like Jeremy and I who run museums, that's really a reality that you face. And so, as I say, this is a perfectly and truly spot-on definition of what a museum is. And in a sense, it's a North Star for us as we perform our duties every day. However, as I said, the reality is more complex. Many people view museums as sometimes mere distractions, momentary distractions, questioning their relevance in today's highly distracted, overstimulated world, largely influenced by technology. I often hear, for example, how fortunate Ayala Museum is to be located within a bustling mall, which supposedly guarantees a steady stream of visitors. However, that's not entirely accurate. We charge admission, and so our closest competitors for consumer attention and their hard-earned pesos are not other museums, but rather brands like Uniqlo, Starbucks, popular entertainment franchises like Deadpool and Wolverine, and the other Marvel multiverse things that are going on. I think you get my drift, no? To complicate matters further, the ubiquitous smartphone serves as a readily available source of information and entertainment. Conversely, some express concern about our ability to connect with the youth, given that we focus on art and history, subjects often perceived as outdated, the old stuff. Yet I find hope in the fact that young people can passionately follow the intricate plots of series like Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings, engaging deeply in fictional histories and characters. For this suggests that the secret sauce to capturing their interest lies in how we tell our stories. So at Ayala Museum, we do this by navigating the delicate arc of fascination to transformation. And by transformation, I mean finding joy and wonder in art and culture through three things: the stories we tell, an elevated museum experience, and community engagement. Allow me to talk a little briefly about each of these points. The stories we tell. Grounded on research, scholarship, and insight, we aim to present narratives that allow visitors to revisit our history and culture with fresh eyes. Our guiding principle is tradition tomorrow. Well, this is a constantly moving target, and I'm glad Bill mentioned it. There are moments when everything aligns and magic happens. A prime example, as Bill said, was our blockbuster exhibition last year, Splendor, Juan Luna, Painter as Hero. Anchored on the long-lost masterpiece, Himen o Himene, which propelled Juan Luna onto the ranks of master painter after winning bronze at the 1889 Universal Exposition in Paris. This exhibition captured the nation's imagination with a narrative that combined the intrigue of long-lost stories, Philippine pride, and revisiting the time when the seeds of Philippine emancipation were sown. That it coincided with the 125th anniversary of Philippine nationhood added a significant gravitas. For the first time, in my recollection, art news dominated the front pages of all the 3 leading Sunday broadsheets, with the exhibition as the lead story of high-rating news programs like 24 Horas and KMJS with Jessica Soho, prompting a wide range of conversations, from the controversial to the sublime, about heroes, art, and history in the ensuing months. In 2023, I'm also happy to say, and so do all my colleagues here, museum visitor rate reached an all-time high at the museum. So it definitely, it works together. So I think the stories are important, and I think when Jeremy mentioned it earlier, that's what we try to do as a museum. We have our own collections, but our challenge is how do we do it and make our viewers see it with fresh eyes. We do it another way through an elevated museum experience. Since its inception in 1974, thoughtful and innovative design concepts have been a hallmark of Ayala Museum's exhibitions, starting with the dioramas. The dioramas was the dream of painter Fernando Sobel, who wanted to give the public a visual tour of Philippine history under one roof. At that time, it was a new museum concept. Relevant as ever before, today the dioramas have been enhanced with augmented reality technology and made more inclusive through interventions for persons with disabilities. This commitment to innovative and engaging design is evident in the upgraded permanent exhibitions of our pre-colonial Philippine gold collection, Philippine indigenous textiles collection, and ancient Asian tradeware ceramic collection on long-term loan from Roberto T. Villanueva Foundation. And of late, this dedication to the innovative design was once again manifest in our post-COVID exhibitions, Intertwined, the one on the left, and Splendor, the one on the right. But perhaps the most groundbreaking innovation to date is the introduction of the country's first interactive digital gallery, which facilitates a contemporary interface with our fragile collection and horror of horror, encourages the visitor to go ahead and touch. This is a real issue for museums. One of the most unfriendly things you'll see in a museum is please don't touch. So we had to be really strategic about how we would invest in this kind of upgrade. And so this one you'll see in our lobby. It showcases a portion of our collections. It makes you see some objects up close, and this is free. So when people are milling around the lobby and trying and waiting, school children come by the hundreds, they can play with this digital gallery. And the best thing about this digital initiative is that it supports a robust data asset management system, which plays a crucial role in our journey toward digitalization. Community development. Community development is about establishing a meaningful role in the lives of the people we serve. It's about making museum going a lifestyle choice rather than just a cursory experience. I think that's part of being livable. You can be there, but if there's no connection, it'll just be an empty building. So community engagement is very important. But again, in a world filled with options, achieving this is no small feat. In his 2009 seminal study, John Fox's model of visitor identity describes 5 types of visitors based on their motivations for visiting museums and other cultural settings. They are, can we go to the next slide? There it is. Nope. 1 second. Well, there are 5. There are the explorers, okay? These are curiosity-driven people. They come to the museum because they just want to know. They always want to be in the know. Then there are the experience seekers who perceive the museum as an important destination, something that they can brag about. Somebody who'll take a photograph in the museum and post it in their blog. That's the kind of person, especially in today's world, wherein a repertoire of experience as projected online is supposed to say what you are as a person. The third one are the facilitators. These are people who focus on supporting the engagement and experience of others. Think of your wife who brings your kids to the museum. They are facilitators. Or your wife who takes her mother-in-law to the museum. That's all kasipsipan, and it all works, but it's fabulous. And then, of course, there are the professionals and the hobbyists who seek a particular content-related objectives. Scholars, and these are people who we work with very deeply and closely in the kind of research that we do in the museum. And then there are the rechargers, who use the museum as a refuge. People who come to mind are the Ayala executives. During lunchtime, when they just want a break, they come and hide in the museum. I have extended that invitation to the highest levels of Ayala, and I tell them, please come. And I'll tell them not to bug you. The security and the tour guides, just come and chill. So it's a real thing. Some of them decided to come more often at lunch break. It's that or go to mass in the chapel at the back of the museum. So this shift in perspective from simply demographics to include identity motivators have helped many museums develop more nuanced programs to create communities. Access is also key, which is why we've transformed into an omni-channel museum, accessible on-site, online, and off-site. I'm not in 21 museums everywhere, but we go through traveling exhibitions. We get invited by schools in provinces, sometimes through LGUs. And of course, globally, as Bill told you, we've been involved with many collaborations with museums abroad to bring our collections and thereby also bring Philippine culture and arts in the forefront. And you can really get that when you partner with the bigger museums abroad. While charging admission, as I said, we charge, can be a barrier, we partner with sponsors who want to help in some way to offer free entry on designated days throughout the year. These events are promoted a couple of days prior on our social media platforms, often attracting 3,000 to 4,000 visitors at a time. Dynamic programming is essential to reach out to new audiences as well, who can provide fresh insights into a new generation as they reinvent and find the significance in their own culture. Maintaining regular programming such as workshops, lectures, concerts, and performances that have garnered loyal following over the years is vital to give people reason to keep coming back. These events are typically scheduled around the same time each year, allowing people to plan ahead. For instance, art classes are offered during the summer, History Comes Alive with Ambeth Ocampo takes place in the 3rd and 4th quarters of the year, and the Manila Symphony Orchestra's rush hour concerts occur quarterly. The rewarding aspect of regular programming is that over time, we cultivate a community of regulars, often spanning generations, who become intrinsically connected to the museum, like Luce.
Ayala Museum has always been my home for the arts. Ever since way back as early as 2010, I attended a Chinese painting art workshop here and then actually had my work exhibited sa hallway ng 2nd floor. So that was my first ever art exhibit. Hi, I am Luce Domini F. Menegito and I am currently a 2nd-year student under the College of Fine Arts in the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Obviously, I am a new member of ang Ilustrador ng Kabataan. And this is our exhibit, Worlds Within Worlds. I attended several START workshops throughout 2013 until 2014. So I think that was around like 7 start workshop, so suki ako dun. I had like another exhibit through the Works in Patience, #InspireEveryday event around 2018. And then in between, I also attended several talks by Beth Ocampo, Bolo ni Boni, and another Japanese performance around 2009. So through the years, like Ayala Museum has always been there for me, especially in the field of arts. Especially now that I have an exhibit here, like, formally as a member of Ang Ilustrador ng Kabataan, I feel like my growth as an artist from the art workshops that I've attended and the talks, it's a full circle moment as an artist.
So in conclusion, for museums to continue to matter to the communities we serve, I posit that we must strive daily to be creative, fresh, relevant, and vibrant always. Because at the heart of
Ayala
it
Museum
is a relationship. Next video.
We started out like most love stories do. Passing by, admiring from a distance. Before we knew it, we were in love. After all these years, we're still discovering new things about each other. It's an ongoing thing, Ayala Museum and I. After all, we have history.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mariles. We have history. That's a nice way to end. Well, first of all, let me say, if you've not been to Ayala Museum, I would really encourage you to visit the museum. Not only is it a beautiful museum, but the collections are really world class. And I think especially, I have a few go-to favorites. I'm one of those who goes there to recharge once in a while, plus to explore, I guess. But yeah, some of the exhibits include the gold exhibit, and especially now that it's been kind of unified with the Surigao treasures, which are the exhibit of the Banco Central, and which kind of completes, I think, the gold collection. It brought two gold collections together that are complementary because they are, one is the missing piece of the other. And so I think when you look at it, you'll really see a complete collection. But there's much more, actually. There's textile, there's ceramics, the dioramas, of course, and the paintings. And I wanted to kind of focus on one point that Mariles mentioned, which is that of being a community engager. It is a community hub. And it's not only because, it's made that way, not because it doesn't focus just purely on its own collection, but it has great programming besides. So apart from the classes, again, if you haven't attended one, but I must warn you, this thing sells out quickly. History Comes Alive with starring Beth Ocampo is always a sellout crowd, always a sellout crowd. And so if you ever see the ad for it, go and buy tickets right away, because you will not be able to attend if you don't buy a ticket. But they also have great concerts, by the way, at the museum. Rush Hour with the Manila Symphony. The jazz, of course, Jeepney Jazz. I'm a religious attender of Jeepney Jazz by the Filipino Heritage Library and held at Ayala Museum. Great music. And of course, just last week, I think they had the MSO Youth, which the award-winning youth orchestra, which just returned from Europe. So there's a lot of things happening in museums, big and small. So I guess look at it like a community hub or a community center for arts, heritage, and culture. And I think that's a good way to create that strong connection with museums. Now, let me move to our third and final speaker before the open forum. And it's my pleasure to have Mayor Wes Gatchallian as our speaker today. As I mentioned, it's the second time he's appeared at Liveable Cities. He's the 27th mayor of Valenzuela City, and he has had dedicated his career to public service, beginning his journey in 2013 as a party list representative. Over the years, he's represented Valenzuela's 1st District and served as House Deputy Speaker from 2020 to 2022 in the House of Representatives. I guess aside from all the support he has given the National Museum, his legislative achievements are impressive. 64 bills passed into law and 22 resolutions adopted. That's something, huh? That's quite a record, I must say. Mayor Wes is deeply committed to making Valenzuela a more progressive and livable city, and he believes in the power of cultural institutions to shape urban development and foster community connection. One of the reasons why we thought of Mayor Wes is because I came across the news that they had restored a building and created a museum, a new museum in Valenzuela. But aside from that, I know they have been working on other projects within Valenzuela to make it a much more livable city. And now he tells me they're working on even more projects on the arts, heritage, and culture of Valenzuela. So today, it'll be great to listen to a mayor and his perspective on why museums matter and why arts, heritage, and culture are so important to create a livable city. Ladies and gentlemen, let's please welcome Mayor Wes Gatchallian.
Thank you, Bill. And thank you for having me back again in the Liveable City program. Of course, to Director Jeremy Barnes, a good friend, and also a person who I consult with in strengthening the different programs of Valenzuela City when it comes to culture and heritage. And yes, we worked together when I was still in Congress, especially during the budget deliberation of the Department of Education. Likewise, Ms. Mariles, Gustillo, and the rest of our participants and guests this morning, good afternoon. So a lot of our students in AIM and guests knows this salawikain, ang hindi marunong lumingon sa pinanggalingan ay hindi makakarating sa paroroonan. So that is why in 2023, we had a year-long series of exciting events for our 400 founding anniversary, entitled Valenzuela 400, History and Progress. The celebration of our once-in-a-lifetime milestone was our way of looking back and being strongly anchored to our shared stories as a people with pride in our past and vibrant dreams for the future. Originally known for its vast fields surrounded by several bodies of water, Valenzuela has indeed came a long way in its colorful journey from a flourishing agricultural and fishing town to a highly urbanized city, and now as one of the most award-winning industrial cities of the country and home to more than 20,000 factories, warehouses, commercial establishments, and businesses. I would just like to briefly share that my goal as a first-term mayor is to transform Valenzuela City and be known not only as an industrial city, but also a livable city where the quality of life is paramount. I guess my inspiration to this is whenever I go around and sabihin, taga saan ho kayo? Taga Valenzuela tayo. Yan yung may pabrika, yan yung may warehouse, yan yung mga 10-wheeler trucks, no? At matraffic, no? So that's the usual description of my city. So now, having almost 850,000 population, I'm slowly changing the image of Valenzuela from not only a place of career and work, but a place where your children, your grandchildren would like to live in a place called Valenzuela City. So my administration is determined to turn this dream into a reality by, among others, building and improving our open spaces, our parks, ecotourism, museums, and heritage sites. Knowledge, information, and education should be accessible to all. However, I believe that education extends beyond the four corners of a classroom. This is why in Valenzuela City, we did not only further strengthen our multi-awarded Education 360 investment program, we also supplemented the same with museums to further educate not just our youth, but our 850,000 Valenzuelanos about the colorful history and rich heritage of our beloved city. Although we are not replete with natural tourist destinations, we do not have beaches, we do not have lakes or mountains, we are not even a tourist destination, no? But we are more known as a highly urbanized industrial city. That's why we make up for the same through our LGU-initiated, managed, operated, and funded, well-curated museums. While we were surprised that not all local government units have their own museums, we were truly inspired by the article published by Rappler last June that shared the story about our museums. Our museum, especially the Museo ni Dr. Pio Valenzuela, the one Bill was mentioning a while ago that we recently opened, which has been accredited as a gallery / museum by the Department of Tourism last year. In the said article, National Commission for Culture and Arts head, Dr. Bersales, stated that a nation without museums is a nation that has nothing to show for where it has been, what it has become, and what it seeks to be. And I totally agree to him and to this statement. So why do museums matter? Number one, museums are information havens. Museums provide a wider perspective to their audience as they give much needed historical knowledge to the public and provides learning beyond the limitations of the four corners of a classroom. Although the life of our local hero, Dr. Pio Valenzuela, whom our city was named after, is being taught in our history classes, the lessons are not as detailed as those other well-known heroes. Mas kilala si Andres Bonifacio, mas kilala si Jose Rizal, but neither in his life a part of our curriculum. So not even our curriculum in DepEd included our own local heroes. This is where the significance of museums come in. They effectively supplement, if not augment, the lessons being taught in schools. In the Dr. Pio Valenzuela Museum, students and even non-students can learn more about Dr. Pio's life than through any history lesson they were taught in school. The clothes he wore, the medical tools he used, and even how his penmanship looked like, as you can see in the slide. So, number two, museums are interactive spaces. Modern and science museums engage in its visitors, which enables them to have fun while learning. On the other hand, our museum ni Dr. Pio Valenzuela is a hybrid museum, which goes beyond the usual setup of looking at items inside glass boxes. Here, visitors get to explore the physical evidence of the life of our local hero, especially through the diorama located at the ground floor, complete with lights, sounds, and hologram, which show various episodes in the life of Dr. Pio. Through interactive learning, we get to deliver a complete and memorable experience to our visitors. We can also make them more excited as they can use all their senses to be fully immersed in the moment, which makes it easier for them to further relate to the life of our local hero. Number three, museums help establish identity. While some museums managed by the National Museum of the Philippines connect us to our past as Filipino people and shared heritage, LGU-run museums help solidify the identity of a community. As an industrial city, Valenzuela is now home not only to the descendants of its first families, but also to the inhabitants from outside the city, from the first and even up to the third generations. Through our museums, we can help these families who migrated to and settled in our city to develop love for Valenzuela and have a sense of place, given that a huge number of our citizens do not have roots in our city. So out of the 850,000 population, I guess the real Valenzuelanos are in the numbers of around 100,000 or even less. So Valenzuela became big, our population grew tremendously throughout the years is because of the livelihood, it's because of the industries, the workers, people from the provinces finding work in our city, then eventually found Valenzuela as a home. With the exposure, knowledge, and understanding gained from each museum visit, we do not only connect our people to our rich and colorful past, as well as to the place which gave them home, life, and livelihood. We also instill pride in Valenzuelanos as we bring back their sense of affinity to the city's history, bustling industry, and culture. Next is museum-involved citizens. LGU-run museums do not enjoy the same resources as those run by the National Museum of the Philippines or funded by the National. For example, our Museo ni Dr. Pio Valenzuela only has 8 staff members. However, this challenge turned out to be a blessing as it opened a door of opportunity. Through our intern volunteers who attend our museum tour guiding seminars, we augmented our manpower, which enabled us to accommodate more tours and visitors even during weekends. It is a win-win situation. Aside from the wise use of resources, our youth can comply with their school requirements without leaving the comforts of our city. Our museums also provide a venue where they get to do their part as productive citizens of Valenzuela by being storytellers to the visitors, as well as give back to the place which nurtured them. Number 5, museum impacts communities. Architect Gio Absede, the president of the Heritage Conservation Society, said that LGU-run museums have the capacity to promote local craftsmen's work, the art, food, music, or other practices that can boost more economic benefits for their own locality. So in our case, in Valenzuela, businesses opened and flourished in the vicinity when our museum opened in Barangay Prancillo Villa. We also have, those businesses are, entrepreneurial businesses, small coffee shop, small ice cream parlors, and the likes. We also have heritage walking tours with its last stop in Barangay Tagalog Fishing Village, Agawad Pook awardee, which tricycle drivers who used to earn only 300 pesos a day now takes home as high as 500 each day. Truly, tourism sites such as museums spur local economic growth. Aside from our Museo ni Dr. Pio Valenzuela, we also have our Valenzuela City Museum, which tells the story of our city. Additionally, inside our newly opened and inaugurated Casa de Polo is our Museo de Polo in Barangay Poblacion, which we opened last year together with our sister city, the mayor of the Bachon City in South Korea. And likewise, Director Barnes was present during that celebration, milestone celebration for our city. So the Museo de Polo showcases artworks that feature our heritage sites and landmarks, as well as photos of the old pulo with the old families as Valenzuela. So as you can see in the video a while ago, our former Secretary of Tourism, Berna Romulo, is a descendant of Pio Valenzuela. So she played 2 roles in that opening. So she was there together with all the Valenzuelano families and old families. We dedicated a place, a museum for them to showcase the families that used to live in the Pulo area. Pulo is the old name of Valenzuela. We were used to be part of Bulacan. As I close, please allow me to briefly share our future plans consistent with my goal to make Valenzuela City a livable city. So, first is the renovation of the Tansinco Heritage House, which I shared to Bill and Jeremy a while ago. This is owned by, they're more known for the aristocrat chicken. So the Reyes family, no? So this is in Barangay Pasolo. It holds significance as one of the few remaining old houses in the city dating back to 1924. Notably, it has been a popular filming location for renowned artist Fernando Poe Jr. So right now, the renovation, this is the perspective, but the renovation was funded by the LGU. I'm very happy that the Reyes family has supported our endeavor and entrusted their property to the city. So hopefully it will be done by end of the year. So there's a picture of the before pala. Yeah, the before. Next is the Gabaldon Museum. Actually, Bill, this is something that I want to talk to Secretary Angara about, but maybe Director Jeremy can help me this. The Gabaldon buildings are old buildings in public schools. No? So, for example, this is an example of a very beautiful Gabaldon house presently in our public school. And it's just left there. Nobody's using it. So, of course, the classrooms are now verticals. No? So, for example, this one in Pulo area, just across Casa de Polo, built in 1920s, the Gabaldon School building of Pio Valenzuela Elementary School is the oldest school building in Valenzuela City. As a heritage landmark, it will be converted into an education museum that will feature the development of the education sector in the city. So I still have to do this together with our new secretary. Next is the Museum of Industries and the Future. So, Bill, this is what I was mentioning a while ago, inspired by Team Lab. So, Valenzuela is known for industrial. So, this is where we will highlight all the major factories such as San Miguel, Uratex, Salem Belt, Linis Peanut Butter, CDO Goods. They are all homegrown to Valenzuela. So I would like to make more interactive to cater to the young generation. So the first level will be dedicated to the industries, our industry partners. Whoever wants to promote their goods and rich history. Valenzuela is home of the Pale Pilsen, the original and the oldest Pulo Brewery of San Miguel. So we'll do in the first level. And the second level will be the interactive, where we can change the content for the young generation. So this new museum will feature an exhibit area dedicated to local industries, etc. So the construction is ongoing. Once again, this is funded by the local government and hopefully will be finishing by the first quarter of 2025 because the original facade will remain. So we're just concentrating on the interior renovations. Next is the Philippine National Railway Museum, which I need to discuss this with Secretary Bautista. We already unveiled the historical marker at the old Pulo train station in Barangay Dalandana along MacArthur Highway. So this site also serves as the headquarters of General Antonio Luna. So presently, the PNR Museum, presently Valenzuela is home of the NSCR, the North-South Commuter Railway. And the PNR Museum is in the middle of that project together with JICA and the Japanese government. So luckily, the DOTR has already covered it with board up and they're preserving it. But again, we would like to partner, the LG would like to partner with the national so that we could help in the promotion and in the management of this museum. Likewise, the new Valenzuela City Museum, our existing museum inside the Valenzuela City Hall, which opened in 2013 when Senator Win was still the mayor. It will now be upgraded, it will now be renovated, and also will be adding digital, using technology and digital AV equipments inside the City Museum. And one of my projects that I'm very much excited next year is what we call the Museum Trail. So after renovating all of this museum, building them and preparing them, of course, one of the ways to promote them is to make a museum trail promotion. So together with all the museums, this day tour will highlight the past, present, and future. So we are planning to buy an electric shuttle to bring participants from all the museums. And we plan to finish this in half day, hopefully, to finish everything from 8 to 11, and then highlighting our Tagalog fishing village around 12 o'clock to have lunch there. So this is one of my plans, indicative plans that we will launch next year. So maintaining museums through local government unit funds is not a walk in the park. However, each time we inspire our visitors and receive positive feedbacks from them, we ourselves get inspired and are encouraged not only to work harder, but to dream bigger for the future. We are still at our early stage of developing our museums, slowly because of funding limitations as well. But slowly, but if we can make our pamilyang Valenzuelano happy and give them a wonderful experience during each of their visits, we are hoping that all LGUs can have their own museums and emulate what we are doing in Valenzuela. This, myself, is a way, as I mentioned a while ago, of a way of transforming a city. Instead of a city being known for factories and warehouses and not much, we don't get visitors, we don't get tourist visitors in our city that much. So this is our own little way of bringing them in and likewise promoting the culture and heritage of the Valenzuelanas to our local citizens. So yun lang po, maraming salamat. Thank you everyone for the...
Thank you, Mayor West. Wow, I think with all your plans, you will succeed in changing the impression of people and changing the reputation of Valenzuela as a city of factories and industry, because you have a lot of plans. And the best part about your plans is it's already started, and it's slowly becoming a reality. So thanks for that. And I think what I like also about your point of view is that how it really builds up identity and pride and inspires people. And I notice a lot of kids going through the museum and writing the evaluation forms, things like that. So I think it's a great way to educate kids about history, but take them out of the classroom and put them in a museum. And I think that's something that many cities can consider. I hope a lot of cities out there were listening to your presentation on Zoom and Facebook, because this is exactly the type of trend that we'd like to see across the country in different cities and municipalities. So at this stage, I'm going to invite our three speakers up front here with me, Mayor West, Jeremy Barnes, Mariles Gustillo, and we're going to open up the floor to questions, and we'll open up Zoom to questions as well. Okay. I'll see you. Maria, I'll see you here. Maybe I'll see you here. Okay, we have enough microphones, guys? Okay, we're going to open this up to Q&A. I'll ask you to raise your hands. And for those of you who want to remember your MBA days, this is a case room. It's equipped with microphones right above you, actually. So if you speak loud enough, you should be heard. Okay, so we don't need to pass the microphone back to you. I'm just going to ask you to raise your hand. I see one here. Yeah. Just please introduce yourself and then to whom you're addressing your question to. And in order to maximize our time, keep the questions short because we're also taking questions from outside of this room because we are in a hybrid format. So let's start. Yes, please, the gentleman.
My name is Cesar Tolentino. I have a comment that I wish the panel to react. My comment is this. It's just a short 3-minute talk. Number one, I think we should help museums achieve cultural contextual relevance for the common people. That's number one. Number two, I think we should elevate the importance of museums as part of modern cultural experience because they have a role in the iconic transformation of culture by connecting history and traditional culture with modern pop culture. Number three, I think we should promote the role of museums with activities. Multimedia projects, publishing animation, games, music, TV series, featuring the topics that we feature in the museums. B, improving social media awareness through the help of influencers. C, experiential activities. I'd like to cite 2 activities that I experienced myself. Number one, it is applicable to Mayor Gatchallian's museum trail, pilgrimages, featuring things like the museum trail. Number two, my experience in Japan is that they have these eki stamps, wherein whenever you go to pilgrimages, in every site you have a booklet. They put a stamp, and when you complete all of the stamps, you're given a reward. So it's a better experience than just simply featuring the trail or featuring the sites. Last but not the least, number 4, I think we should make culture cool, just like what they did in Japan with the Cool Japan program. But more than that, I think we should make Filipino culture fun. And I'd like to propose the concept of Fiesta Philippines as a concept for all Filipino culture. Make Filipino culture fun, and museums being a part of the fun in Filipino culture. That's all. For the panel to react.
Yep. Thank you, Cesar. Would anyone like to react or comment on that?
I'd like to add. Yeah, I think I did mention to you earlier that our competition is other things. If we want to get the attention and focus the attention of our countrymen on museums and what we can offer. So there is really it's necessary for us to understand who they are, what they like, and to see how we can situate museums in the context of today's young people, the lives that they lead. So yeah, I agree with you in general. I think there is really a need for that, to make ourselves relevant. As I said, at the museum, we say tradition tomorrow. You gotta be able to express it in today's terms so that it becomes relevant and desirable. Madaming distractions at labas, so you have to realize that. I think that's the key thing. Thank you.
Mayor West?
So on the passport that you mentioned, it's actually a good idea. So we are planning to do that on the museum trail that I plan to do. So whenever they visit a site, they'll get a stamp. And the reason it's ending in our Tagalog fishing village, not only to promote that area, but we'll be giving a discount coupon. So when they finish the museum, they'll get a discount coupon on that particular restaurant. And yes, you're right in saying that we should also adapt to the changing environment. You know, I have kids, and when you bring kids to an ordinary museum with sculptures and paintings, they really get bored, no? And they don't interact much. This is the reason why in one of the slides I showed you the Museum of the Industries and the Future is because I'm worried that the young generations, the Gen Zs, might get bored on looking at, for example, a beer brewing machine and metal things inside the museum. That's why I made the second floor the interactive portion. And what's good with the interactive portion is you just need technology. Just the high-end short throw projection, good sound system, good air conditioning, and you can keep on changing the content. So on the second floor, we'll do an interactive style, but on the first floor, my plan is the traditional museum.
Thanks. Other questions? Okay, here, I see one. Go ahead. Just ask your question.
Hi everyone, my name's Pierce. Thank you for the wonderful talk. My question is, what do you think in all your different perspectives within your background would be a fairly neglected area that you wish somebody could be doing that you cannot do?
Okay, good question. What is neglected that you wish you would be doing?
Well, maybe in the case of the, sorry, Jeremy, maybe in the case of the local government, in our case, it's the lack of land. That's the challenge here. So the things that I've shown you are not new lands. They are lands that or properties that are existing already. One was donated by the Valenzuela family. One was donated by the Reyes family. The rest are LGU owned, bits and pieces. We just put it there. The other museum is an existing, for example, the Gabaldon is a DepEd property. The other one is a DOTR property. So it's a matter of being innovative, no? So I had no choice because we don't have land, the luxury of land. So we keep on partnering with national agencies and maybe hopefully with private institutions as well to support us on this endeavor.
Okay. Yeah, that's one. Mariles?
Yeah. Something that we're exploring at the foundation is, because we do community development. And I think, how do you use art and culture as an intervention to help a community develop? There are concepts now that are around in the world, the idea of creative placemaking. How do we use creativity as a help for communities to develop, even economically? I think that there are many examples, I think, abroad. And so that's something that we're exploring. I mean, we have a strong history with art and culture. And so we're looking at that. How do we then use what we know about art and culture to help a community develop? It's very nascent. Our president, Tony Lambino's here, and he's helping us champion this as well. But that's something that I think is very doable because there are examples around the world. So maybe, Mayor, maybe we can do something together. I mean, it becomes, it's as simple as making a town attractive. So it becomes a tourist attraction just by painting them all the same color. I mean, there are things like that that are happening all over the world, and maybe we could initiate things like that that will allow the spotlight to come to a place and help the community and the economy grow. So that's something. Hindi pa ginagawa pa lang. Thank you.
Jeremy, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, well, for us, it's digital transformation. I wish we had more museums in the Philippines. Like with Ayala and us, there's only a couple of other guys that we regularly run into, and that's kind of a large part of our group already. I wish we had more museums that are in a position to really tackle the challenge of digital transformation, so we can see what works, what pays off in terms of the investment, what are the right methods. And I'm talking about not only the way the museum presents, but also the back of house stuff, collections management, how to make our collections more accessible online, how to use apps and things. So what the National Museum is doing right now is we are pioneering mobile app development for museums, and we are at the same time digitizing our collections. And everyone we talk to, they say that they've not managed to sell any of their products in the Philippines. We would be the first. Some of them went to Ayala Foundation, and Ayala Foundation turned them down. So we're wondering, why did you turn them down? So in terms of the museum sector in the Philippines, we're very much at that stage where making only tentative moves towards really going for these technologies. Going to friends abroad and asking how they've done it is of limited applicability. We really are interested in finding Philippine experiences with technology products and services. So that may be a bit of a more technical answer, but for us in the National Museum, I wish that we had success stories that we could just follow. Instead, we're finding ourselves also blazing the trail for everyone, which we're happy to do. It's just a bit anxiety, generating. That's all. Yeah. I just hope it works out.
See, who would have thought running a museum is a high-pressure job? Okay, but Jeremy, I have a question for you here coming in from Zoom, okay? I noticed, this is from Zoom, a speaker from Zoom. I noticed there are no areas in Cagayan de Oro City, so I guess you do not have a location there yet. Right. Is there anything that you know of that's being worked out or in the near future for this city central in this city in northern Mindanao? There's a related question, it says here that our city, meaning, I don't know which one it is, maybe Cagayan de Oro also, used to have a museum, a national museum of the Philippines. We can no longer trace what happened and why it is no longer operating. I'm not sure if it's the same city. We'd have to check if this is Cagayan de Oro, but how about Cagayan de Oro? Why no location yet?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So as many museums as we do have, we're not everywhere. We're not yet in every region of the country. In fact, we're not in 3 regions right now. We're not in Eastern Visayas, Region 8. We're not in Northern Mindanao, which includes Cagayan de Oro, Region 10. And we're not in Soxargen in Region 12. And so because there's only 3 left, the glass is half full, man. So there's only 3 left, and we're trying to make progress to having a presence in all those regions, in Tacloban, in Coronadal, and for Northern Mindanao. Probably, well, we're yet to decide, but we're not looking at CDO. We're looking more at, they're going to hate me for saying this, more in the Iligan City area. Okay. But and that's because we'd like to be where we feel we can make the largest impact, and there's a long checklist about that. Cagayan de Oro is quite well served by Xavier University Museum and the City Government Museum. And it's true, back in the 80s, there was a branch of the National Museum there that wasn't sustained. And so I'm not sure as to the reasons why it wasn't sustained. But when we do establish component museums now, sustainability is a big part of our decision to go in. Yeah.
Okay. The second question I asked about, our city used to have a museum owned by the National Museum of the Philippines. We can no longer trace what happened and why it is no longer operating. However, nevertheless, we are eager to rehabilitate our local museum. And the city, I found out, is Escalante in Negros. Yeah, but I noticed Bacolod is also here, and you mentioned you are planning one in Victorias, right? So this question came from Escalante.
Well, hi, Bacolod. Yes, well, I know less about Escalante. Yeah, there's a rich and complicated history to my agency, the National Museum. And lots of things happened in the 70s and 80s that didn't survive, like, let's say, into, after EDSA and into the 90s. But we're delighted to work with our friends in Negros Occidental. You have a great heritage champion in the form of Congressman Kiko Benitez. And again, we discussed where we would locate. The idea was this amazing, complicated, but world-class sugar heritage of Negros and Panay deserved to have its own museum. And we were looking at Bacolod, which has a great museum already, the Negros Museum. We were looking at various other places. We already have something in Iloilo. And so we identified Victorias with the famous Victoria's Milling, real go-to destinations like the Chapel of the Angry Christ, the Heritage District in Silay, and many, many other places in that area of Negros. And then, we're negotiating with the LGU as to what we could establish, what kind of partnership. It's kind of a long process. And so we decided that, Victoria's, for instance, would be ideal for us there. We try not to compete with existing museums. We try to see whether we can really complement and do fill in gaps that are there. One big strength of the National Museum vis-a-vis a lot of other museums is we go out in a big way for the natural heritage, which many museums focus on social history and art. And so we always feel we can contribute when it comes to flora and fauna, to the environment. And so that's what we're also planning for Negros. It's very exciting. So as to the why we were there and weren't there, I'm not so aware of that, I'm afraid to say.
Sure, yeah. But I think sugar, the sugar industry is an interesting one for many people. And just judging by the success of the book, The Houses That Sugar Built, I think, it's a great book, and I think there's a lot of interest in the history behind that industry. Okay, Mariles, I have a question for you, also coming from Zoom. As an educator from PUP, I would like to make an appeal that your good office, the Ayala Museum, make the entrance fee visit to the library and museum more affordable for students. This teacher says, now I have my history class listening and attending this webinar because we have the love of our culture and history in our hearts and in our veins. So what do you think?
I'm sure this is something we can discuss. There are people, we have partners who are individuals who like to donate, sponsor, and make these things as accessible as possible to as many people as possible. So if you don't mind, maybe you should email me so that we can. No, we would love to have you in the museum. We don't do this just for the sake of it. Right. It's really a service to the community, and we can really figure something out for sure.
Okay, so Mariles, what is your email address?
Can I tell them? I don't want to announce it to everyone. I'm like the fan club. There, she's gonna. Somebody will send you my email address.
Or are you watching it on Zoom as well? Yes. So you can respond on Zoom.
Yes, somebody will respond to you now.
So all our speakers, typically we ask our speakers to have a Zoom buddy.
Yes.
So that they can answer questions that are coming in on Zoom as we are getting questions coming in live. So, if you don't mind, if you could give Mariles's email address
Monica is there. She's going to do it.
To the professor from PUP.
Yes, gladly. We would welcome you. We can arrange something for sure. Thank you very much for your interest.
Thank you. This is one for Mayor West. What kind of shift in mindset does an LGU need in order to begin this journey to preserve heritage, build a museum, do things like what you're doing, all the way to Museum Trail? What advice would you give to another mayor who just would want to do exactly what you're doing for their own city or municipality?
Well, part of being a mayor or in public service is innovation and creativity. All you need is really innovation. I'm sure a lot of the city mayors have traveled to other countries, and whenever you travel to a city or a certain area, you always look for either the shopping mall or the museum. So usually the wives goes to the shopping mall, or they bring the kids to the museum. So in our case, like what I mentioned during my presentation, nobody would know or visit Valenzuela unless you have a business transaction. Unless you have a meeting, you need to visit a factory or do an order, etc. No, but slowly when we found creative ways of making Valenzuela a livable city, starting with building our parks. We have at least 2 parks. I'm building another one. Building a sports arena. These are all components of what we call a livable city. And I believe that museum should be part of it. No? So all LGUs have their own stories, similar to us. We're just lucky that the name of our city is actually a name of a person. And a national hero who helped Andres Bonifacio during the old days. But even without a national hero in your city, you could always find ways to promote something. And it's just being able to be creative, innovative, and likewise, the promotion is very key. That's what we're lacking right now. So our promotion is very limited only. So I guess the other mayors, it would not cost much as well to build. You don't need to build a big museum in the level of Ayala because our museums are free of charge. So you can just do small museums, but with stories. I'm sure they could find old houses. It's actually common now that old houses are becoming restaurants for revenue making. But instead of making it restaurants, we could suggest making it, sharing it to the young generations to do a deep understanding of what that house means for that community. And at the end of the day, like again what I mentioned, education is paramount in Valenzuela, starting with Senator Win when he was a mayor. I believe that this is a crucial part of education, to educate young minds, because a lot of the young generations does not even know who Pio Valenzuela is. They know the city is Valenzuela City. They were born, no? What he looks like, why is he a hero, what he did for our country. So building museums like this is addressing this issue that are not addressed by DepEd or the public schools. So I guess it's really, Bill, it's just being creative and innovative and trying to find ways to find funding as well.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Oh, now so many. Okay. Let me start. I'll work from the right side to the left side. So please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tatiana Fife. I am an oncoming student for a Master's in Arts and Cultural Management. And you guys have talked about so many great points that I wish I could ask you all individually, personally. But for the sake of time, my question has more to do with the hiring practices, because Mayor Gatchallian, you mentioned earlier that you started with a staff of 8. And running a museum has a lot of technical skills involved. So my question really is, how do you train and support the next generation of curators, archivists, maybe conservators, etc., and maybe even future directors for your institutions?
Well, in our case, we have certain limitations. So what we do is we just, as I mentioned, we get volunteers, usually students from college, similar students who are taking up culture and arts courses. And we just have one or a couple of curators or directors who are teaching them. In fact, Jonathan Balsam is with me and he has long history together with NHCP. So luckily we have people like him who are dedicated in pursuing this initiative. But that's what's lacking with the local level. So we do not know what will happen in the future, but we just try our best to build all these museums so that it would stay regardless of the issue. Actually in local level is that we're elected every 3 years. So we're just lucky that there's continuity in Valenzuela. That's why we were able to connect all the different projects together in one umbrella on the 360 Education Investment Program. But in the likes of other cities, the continuity will be an issue. So the next mayor or the next leader or public servant might not have the same vision and might not fund it or might not be interested to look for trainers. So this project will not sustain.
Okay, thank you. We had a question here, and then after that, sorry, Jeremy, go ahead, and then I'll take a question.
We should, for that question, yeah, we should talk more. There's no formal museum studies courses in the Philippines. It's quite an issue for us when we think of sustainable development of museum professionals. Right now, we basically provide opportunities for work immersion so that people who are interested in working in a museum spend time with either the National Museum or the National Historical Commission or the Cultural Center of the Philippines and a couple of other organizations. I don't know if Ayala Museum offers that. And then we also have opportunities for local government employees to spend time with us. And that's the way we transmit museum skills. And those who are really into it have to study abroad, a higher degree or a diploma course. But this is something that's always the topic of discussion for us, planning museum development forward. Yeah. Thanks for the question.
Just to add to what Jeremy was saying, we're a private museum. And so, yes, it's the same issue. There's no formal training. There's no museology course in the Philippines. So the people who generally come and work in a museum are in related studies, anthropology, archaeology, history. And then we bring in, as much as we can, some expertise, maybe through friends from abroad, or we send them out. We encourage them to go and take a grant somewhere and get a course and then to come back and maybe share it. That is really a real problem. But I have found over the years that those that are really committed tend to really pursue the interest and give back. And so the idea is to also give them a sense of a career if they do that. It's a tricky thing, and I'm sure on a national level and a local level it's the same. It's a reality, but I think there's more and more people who find interest in arts management. And when you talk about management, management is management. Whether you're running, there are basic skills that you need to run an organization. So you could send somebody to AIM and learn how to run an organization, and it's an art organization. So it's just I wanted to tell you that. Thank you.
I was going to say that the panel here is a very good example exactly of those types of the skill set that you'd want in running an organization. As I said, Jeremy has a master's in economics. Mayor West has had a long career in politics. And Mariles was in advertising for 25 years as president and CEO of Lowe Philippines. So it can be done, but obviously it still requires some special training. I'll take one more question here, and then I have two questions downstairs in the other case room because we couldn't fit everybody here. And then I'll go back to questions here. So we'll make this really quick. Go ahead. Yeah, we have another room aside from Zoom. Oh, sorry, go ahead. First on the back and then here. The two, one after the other, the two questions.
Hi, my name is Monty. I work in marketing and donor relations. I wanted to touch on Mayor Gatchallian's comment on funding. So my question is, what do LGUs look for in arts and culture partners? What inspires them to invest in an initiative? Do you have criteria?
Well, not much, as long as you're willing to lend money and help in the endeavor, will welcome you. Like I mentioned, I guess in an annual budget of a city, I think other LGUs will speak the same. The museums and arts are actually among the least being given funding. No, Usually it forms part of our what we call SEF. It's a special education fund mandated by the DBM. But obviously this SEF goes to building classroom, uniforms, school supplies, etc. That very small amount is being distributed to arts and history. In our case, I think we have 18. How much did we allocate? 19 million. 19 million a year for the whole office, not for the museum, for the whole office, the salaries, the maintenance, etc. And now we're building a couple of museums, so the 19 million will become very, very little. So yes, we welcome private foundations or initiatives to partner with us, showing that we have plans by 2025. All these museums will be online version, and we're open to working and partnering. We've been working also with National Museum, with and NHCP in a lot of our endeavors on the national and local, but we look forward in working with private institutions.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome Thai Ambassador Tul Tresorat. Welcome, Ambassador. Thank you for joining us.
I'm very late. I just came back from hosting a lunch.
No problem at all. No problem
Very
at all.
happy to escape if you are host.
Must have been a very good lunch. Thank you. Let me go downstairs to the Lopez case room and take a question from there first. We've got microphones there, right? Okay, go ahead from Lopez case room.
Good afternoon. My name is Alex. I'm an art collector, an art enthusiast, art promoter. There's one topic which I think hasn't been covered because museums are exclusive spaces. You have to go to a museum to appreciate what's there. I was wondering what the panel can say about art in public spaces. Usually, I mean, art you encounter going through your everyday life, walking through the mall, walking through your place of work and going back. I know back in the 70s, we had a lot of that in Makati Commercial Center. For those of us who are old enough to remember the old name of Ayala Center. Okay, so I think we see some of that in Angono and a bit of that in some places in Makati where you have public displays of art. And I know they're trying to do something in One Ayala where you can walk through, you know, art that's on display.
Okay, that's a good question. Public art. Jeremy?
Yeah, well, just to start off, that's a related but different thing. It's not necessarily a museum activity. Anyone can put art and promote art, art appreciation in the work of artists in public spaces. So while many museums do that to some degree or another, it's not just museums that do that. So for the National Museum, it's something we support. But we do it with a view to letting people know that if they like what they see out in that public space, they should come to the museum, to our dedicated space, to see more and dive deeper into that. Yeah. That's for us. But for One Ayala and those things, I mean, as a Makatisan myself, I love going around and seeing the public art here.
I think it's part of the planning of Ayala Land. I mean, we work with them. Sometimes they consult with the museum when it comes to finding, you know, artists who will be involved in public art. And it's part of their planning. It's part of the space. It's like the green space, the public art. It's all part of being a livable city. So yes, but it's not necessarily as Jeremy said on the side of the museum to fulfill that objective. But we are consulted regarding who are the artists, what would be appropriate, and stuff like that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's something that our cities are maybe missing out on. It's not really the role you would expect museums to do, but there are others, including developers, property owners, building owners. From what I can recall, in Makati, there have been exhibits of public art, but they have not been permanent. Okay, they have been long-term. Yeah, in PGC has had. I think the Ayala Triangle used to have the Arturo Luz sculptures. So they're around. Sometimes you see Leroy Newman works in front of CCP, for instance. There's been one. But those are, I think, temporary. You know, they're there for maybe a few months to a year, and then pulled out. But it would be great to have more public art. There was a second question from the Lopez case room. Is there still one there?
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm Architect Raf Balero from Cavite City LGU.
Cavite.
May tanong po ako kay Mayor.
Wes.
Backstory po muna kasi sa Cavite City po kasi, yung mayor din namin is planning to construct a museum. So, ando kasi si Cavite Puerto before, then nalocate yung site kung saan first in-unfurl ni President Aguinaldo yung Philippine flag. Then doon balak ilocate yung museum. Gusto ko lang tanongin, Mayor, if sino yung mga technical person na nilapitan nyo or may involvement man ng mga national government agencies like National Museum para matulungan, kunyari, may mga i-display doon, ano ba yung tamang i-display, kunyari, ano yung mga room temperature, baka maapektuhan yung mga nidi-display, ganun. And baka meron bang possibility na makapag-benchmarking po kami sa city ninyo sa Valenzuela so that makita namin yung baka pwede namin maging gawing standard yun para yun yung masundan ng gagawin sa city namin. Thank you po.
Well, maraming salamat at I think si Mayor Alex Advincola, no?
Denver Chua po.
Denver Chua, yes, sa
Cavite
city, no?
City.
Yeah, of course, you're very much welcome. Later on, andito, you can get my number and the head of our Arts and Culture Director is here as well. And actually, ever since we opened the Pio Valenzuela Museum, we had a couple of visitors from different LGUs. And Bill, this is what I was mentioning, that I believe it's rolling already. The interest is rolling among LGUs for many reasons. So yung doon naman sa technical specs natin, actually, it's better that we consult NHCP. When we were doing this, we're in constant communication with them. But yung sa amin naman ho, ay hindi naman to highly technical, no? Or ganun kagarbo. It's very basic. This is the original house of Dr. Pio Valenzuela. So we just made the most out of what we can using the same space. We did not alter it much to preserve what it is. And in fact, all our movements and restoration has to be approved by the Valenzuela family. And this area, if ever man we just added a couple of small areas like toilets to give comfort to our visitors, no? So yung mga areas of preservation is something na not too much technical, but it needs the guidance of maybe the National Museum or NHCP, one of the national agencies to help us. Kasi may accreditation din ito coming from their part and also accreditation coming from Department of Tourism. But I know in Cavite, it's the home of Aguinaldo and rich history. So I'm sure a lot of national can also assist, knowing that this place is of national interest, not only of local, but national interest.
Mayor, when you restored the Valenzuela house or the other ones that you want to do, did you engage a professional architect
Yes,
who specializes in conservation and preservation?
Yes, we use architect Laiko, who's known for preservations, and the rest of actually I don't want to try other. I mean, not because of there's not because there's other choices naman talaga of other architects, but preservation is very sensitive. It's a specialty. So kailangan the firm that you will engage should have past experiences on maintaining and preserving this structure. So I got him also for the Tansenko House, for the Museum of the Future Industry and the Future as well, and a couple of projects. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's good advice. that you're not only seeking technical help from national agencies, but that you are engaging a professional architect who specializes in the preservation and restoration of old buildings. I think that's critical. Now we're running out of time, but I want to ask everybody. I'm going to have everyone ask their question before I have the answers, okay? So that we can listen to all the range. So I have one question here, then I had one here, and then one there, and one here. So 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, ask your questions, and then they will answer, okay? Please go ahead.
So my name is Red. Taga Valenzuela po ako sa Ugong. I really love the Valens building, the public library, Valenzuela. It's recently established, I think, just last week. I'm really big fan of your architecture in Valenzuela, the City Hall, and also the nearby campus PLB, Papantasang Musod ng Valenzuela, maganda rin. And I really admire your policy there. A lot of good projects. So Sir Jeremy here is about digital. Sir is a politician, and Sir is a private Ayala. My question is, the highlight is the need for balanced policies and promote inclusive growth, because basically we're gonna be focused, the ones who's receiving all these goals is the community. So it's not just about the growth of the place, the property value, also the Ayala. So what is the balance between cultural preservation and commercialization? Because she mentioned the funding, right? So I have a backstory po. I'm working at a sports organization, and we had this meeting mentioned that Circuit Makati will be a center for culture and arts. And so they are like looking for partners. And I got privileged to be a part of the meeting, and I heard a lot of urban planning development around it. So I'm more curious about it, the balance between cultural preservation, community, and the inclusive growth for the locals. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to the second, third, and fourth questions, and then we'll go back. Okay, please,
so
go ahead.
I'm one of those specialists. I restore artworks. So that's my company, and it's private. I'm very happy how things have been moving forward in this line. Like, I totally congratulate Jeremy Barnes in restoring all these churches that broke down during the earthquake. So that's really substantial work. I don't think other countries are doing that sort of work. And apart from it requiring so much funding, no? So parang are we also gathering all these conservators apart from the management people to be in sync with all their projects, so that we don't only service private sector, but we also help the government, and I'm already doing that. I give them budgets, but end of the day, I also noticed that they need Wi-Fi. A lot of these museums need free Wi-Fi support for all the children. The people who go transport from airport that brings the children or the guests, the tourists, to the museums and back. Logistic support. And then finally, yung digital transformation, So I haven't seen the Museum of West Gatchallian. I will go there one day. Our museum QC is quite good. Then last year, I was in Osaka. We visited the Nakanoshima Museum for a day. It was really impressive kasi talagang massive yung budget nila. It was really top brass architect. But what happened was it was closed. What happened? Oh, because we're moving our collection all over the country. So like now our default natin is Ayala Museum, diba? They always have the best exhibits. What I'd like to see in the future is also moving exhibits of the Ayala everywhere, or not even just here, or regionally, even to China. You see this in Rome. I saw what was inside Forbidden Cities in Capitolino, in Rome, through artworks. So international exchange, or the capacity of museums to receive international exhibits. No? But we're really doing very well. Congratulations.
Okay, thank you, thank you. You had a third question back here? Yes, go ahead.
I'm Marian Salvador from Museo de la Salle.
And I have two concerns. One is I would like to share our best practice in encouraging our students. What we are doing now is we integrate the museum in the curriculum, in the core syllabus. So the students are now visiting the museums together with their teachers. And what we are doing is to curate learning depending on the topic. So that's one. My second question is about accreditation. If the National Museum is accrediting existing museums so that to raise the quality or the standards of quality and sustain the quality of service.
Okay.
I think there should be an agency that will be doing that. How about the livable cities?
Okay. Okay. Yes, please. Last question.
Hi,
Bacolod.
I'm Councillor M. Ang. I'm from Bacolod. I chair the Committee on History, Culture, and Arts. And the reason why we are having interest in museums and how, as the title of our session this afternoon, how it can help, why it matters, is because we are right now building. Actually, my question is similar to the question of the good architect from Cavite. But while Cavite is still planning, we are already about 85 or more % complete with a new museum that we are building. The city government received a donation, a property donation of about 8 hectares. Yeah, from
Lucky you.
yeah, 8 hectares. So we're building a museum, an auditorium, and a coliseum. So we're hoping, as it is about to be completed, the question we're asking is, what are we going to put there? So we are hoping that we could get some guidance or maybe even technical support from the National Museum and the others who are here. I admire the project of the good mayor, Mayor West, because you have that plan of establishing small museums and making it into a trail. That's very good. We're getting ideas from there because it's true Bacolod is already some existing museums, but they are either owned and operated by the province or by private foundations or by private families. So yes, we are now trying to find out how to populate the building. It's massive, it's big, and it's about to be completed already.
Okay. Thank you. So those are the questions. Let me just start with your building since it's under the construction phase.
Oh, by the way, the museum, the construction of the building is a gift from Senator Zubiri. I think he gave 200 million. So the land is a gift from a family in Bacolod, and the building is being constructed from funds given by the good Senator Mig Zubiri.
Okay. Nice. Well, lucky, very lucky. I was going to say, while I know nothing about the content you'll put in, but since your building is still under construction,
that's fine.
My recommendation is that you already build in the connectivity into the building because, many people when they go to museums now, they might want to use their Wi-Fi, they might want to listen to a soundtrack, but none of that happens if there's no connectivity in the building. And museums are big, massive spaces. When the deeper you go into the museum, your signal is going to get cut for sure. I've just been through a museum where massive, but signal was clear all the way through because it's set up for that, and we could listen to the soundtrack all throughout the guide. And the guide is no more headsets given to you; it's on your phone. Okay, you just download it on your phone through a QR code. So, I mean, you'd have to think about the underlying technology in the building if you want to create a great building a great museum experience. So anyway, the questions, one is the balance between the cultural and the commercialization and the inclusivity. The other had to do with, well, among other things, the Wi-Fi connectivity, but Globe is here to answer that. There's a third question that had to do with, say, accreditation, for instance, and then the one about what to put in Negros. Who would like to take a question in any order?
I'd be happy to start on that. In the Philippines, we kind of follow the American model of museum organization. So just like in the States, we don't have a ministry or department of culture. Museums are not regulated. You don't have to meet certain criteria to use the name of to call yourself a museum. There are museum associations that you can join, and I think they are self-regulating, that you have to kind of operate to a certain standard of ethics. You have to be non-profit in order to be like a legitimate member of the group. So in a commercial development, like let's say circuit, I think was what was mentioned. One of the attributes of a museum that, when you go there, you'll feel this feels like a museum, is its non-profit aspect. It could be surrounded by commercial development, but I think one of the hallmarks of a museum that everyone should learn, maybe the first museum a Filipino will go to is the National Museum. One of the things we try to teach people is a museum is a service. It's accessible to all, no matter what your background or sector of society, or it has that non-profit feel. It's not exclusive, it's inclusive.
Jeremy, maybe
so
you could
so beyond those basics,
yeah.
there's all kinds of all kinds of directions you can go in.
Yeah, I think one thing that will make it clear in the public mind, maybe you could explain the difference between a museum and a gallery.
Oh, that's okay. There used to be a clear distinction, but that's become really fuzzy these days. So it's almost interchangeable.
But I think, Jeremy, I think what's clear though, museums, galleries are transactional.
Yeah.
Museums are not.
Exactly.
They're not allowed.
That's the old school definition. Yeah.
Except through museum shop.
Although they can behave like they're a museum, but at the end it's transactional.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's the only difference I can see.
Yeah. So because there's no regulatory framework, there's no system of accreditation either. There's been occasional talk of the need for that, but there have always been the question of who would do it and how it would be done. Some museums go for the Department of Tourism accreditation as tourism-friendly places, but not as museums per se. So this is one of those things that it's up to the policymakers. I would support a little more regulation of museums, but that's traditionally been done by the sector itself. We have, in the National Commission for Culture and the Arts, we have the National Committee on Museums. That is more the policy-making body for museums. Certainly at the National Museum, we don't dictate what museum policy is. We don't want to crowd everyone out of the conversation, being the biggest museum institution. So we usually talk about these things in the National Committee on Museums at the NCCA, and where we're just one member. And regional museums, private museums, ecclesiastical, all kinds of museums are represented there. And that was Dr. Bersales, he's the head of that, who you quoted in your presentation. Yeah. So yeah, it's an open question. But definitely, we all aspire to meet the definition of a museum under the International Committee on Museums, or ICOM. There's a definition there that we all say that we aim to meet in terms of nonprofit, being permanent, being inclusive, being ethical. and being a place where people go for education, entertainment, exchanging knowledge, so on and so forth. There's a definition that ICOM has prescribed museums should meet in order to be properly qualified as museums. Yeah. And what was the next point? Sorry, Bill, you lined up all the four questions at once.
The balance between commercial and cultural.
Yeah. So I've seen museums in the midst of very commercial developments, but the museum operation itself should be non-profit, I believe. Yeah.
Like in our case, for example, we sit in the middle of a commercial district, but we're part of a foundation. So it's very clear how we operate. It is part of a service structured around a foundation. Thank you.
And, well, Mayor West, I mean, you don't charge admission to the museums in Valenzuela, right? So you support it completely out of a city budget?
Local funds.
Local funds, and then donation for the original setup of the property.
Property, yes.
For the property. Okay, so
But
that's
it's good to note down that the local economy spurs from structures like this, from museums. So like I mentioned, even how small it is, a coffee shop, ice cream parlor, it adds to the local economy and livelihood of the people surrounding it.
Okay, thanks. I know we're going to run out of time because we have so many questions, but I'll just ask the last question, which is, how do you inspire people to come and work in a museum? Knowing that there's no specialized training for it or anything, but what would you do to inspire people? Or do you have programs like internships, for instance, to get people get their dip their toes in the water for museum?
Yeah, I can answer first. I think the first thing is young people realize that working in a museum is a very creative exercise, and I think that's what is a point of fascination. Because what we do is using objects, creatively putting together objects. We're conversing with the rest of the world using the museum. So it is for people who are creative, people who are interested to know more and dig deep. And you need to be articulate. You need to be able to express yourself properly. But you'll know when you've worked with these young people who will be suitable for this kind of job. But I think the first thing is it is a creative enterprise. And I think you know that, Mayor. Just you, when I listen to you talking about what you want to do, I can see your mind thinking about how to do these things. So it is highly creative. And I think as creative as doing a film or writing a book. So I think those things are what fascinate the young people. And I hope that continues. And our job as people who run these museums is to see who are these people who will be the next generation. To keep up, as I said, as we say in our little video, it's an ongoing thing. So you have to keep people engaged and look for the right staff to help that happen.
Mayor, what about you? You've successfully gotten volunteers to be the storytellers and the guides. So how did you attract them in?
So in our case, it's a bit different because these volunteers or some of the students, they don't have any educational background pertaining to museum operation or management. I think they didn't even have the chance to visit Ayala Museum or the bigger museum. Maybe the National Museum they do, since it's government. No? So us is the challenge here, like what was mentioned a while ago, was the sustainability. In order for us to sustain this operation, it's not only the money matter or the funding issue, but the people working inside museums like this. So this is my thrust to introduce the creativeness, the art scenes, and the heritage portion of our city, so that we could build the interest among the young generations. Our numbers of visitors are not quite big, no? Not comparable to maybe other museums or bigger museums. the interest is still slowly building. And likewise, the interest of working or volunteering for free in a museum is quite hard to sustain. So our challenge now is through all this initiative, we'll be keeping on building and building the interest. My first target is among Valenzuelano Gen Z or students, but later on maybe to share it with our neighbors, since we saw in our guest book that students from Caloocan or Malabon, our neighboring areas, are also visiting the museums. So our job now is to continue to build the interest, so we will have more volunteers to help us. The city can add employees when government paid employees when this museum trail comes in. But what's important for me are the volunteers, because the volunteers, you have to love what you're doing. And you have to have an appreciation of the arts, the culture in the museum. And first things first, it's near your place because it's inside the city. Even if you have the interest, but you have to ask them to travel all the way to far to commute and go to other cities, might not be sustainable. So at least now with all these projects in line, we might get our own manpower from all citizens who are willing to give time, who are willing to open their minds on such a program like this.
Thanks, Mayor. How about you, Jeremy, National Museum? Because you have specializations, right? You have your 8 departments. So how do you attract people to come to you?
Well, we don't seem to have any issues in most areas of the museum, the technical areas, except for one, which is in conservation. Highly specialized especially of paintings, the objects that Miss Anna Lee over there works on herself. These typically need overseas education, quite expensive, quite rigorous. And unfortunately, Filipinos who train in that tend to stay abroad because those are very lucrative careers. Those who come here, well, it's hard to meet their fees. So that's one aspect that, yeah, we have a kind of a problem with how to sustain our capabilities in conservation, restoration, especially of paintings and works of art. But when it comes to frontline and people who work with our visitors, our clients in the communities, for every one position, there are 30 applicants. People really love the idea of working in a museum atmosphere and having a career. Entry level is fairly standard, not that well paid, but we've been busy creating career paths within the bureaucracy of the museum, so that if it's something you love and are good at, you can really make a career out of it. Yeah. At the same time, the museum, as I tried to present, is expanding. The National Museum. We are severely under-museumed as a country. Beyond Metro Manila and some other big centers like Iloilo, Cebu, there are very few museums compared to such countries like Thailand. We have the ambassador here. For instance, the National Museum of Thailand, our direct counterpart over there, has 44 branches. Yeah. So we're very proud to have 21, but we're a long way from Thailand, more or less the same size of country. Of course, they get way more tourists than we do, but we're aspiring for that, of course. So just in terms of the National Museum network, we have a long way to go vis-a-vis a counterpart like Kingdom of Thailand, which has amazing museums. Maybe 15 years ago, there weren't so many private museums. Now, dumadami yung private museums, immersive museums, science museums, all kinds. So it's always a treat to go to Thailand and see what they're doing there.
Thank you. We've gone over time, and I think there's going to be more questions. I know in the Zoom and in the other case room, but I'm sorry we've run out of time. However, I'm glad we did this session, the lab today, with on museums. I think it's a very interesting topic. I think more cities need it. I agree with Jeremy that it's we're a very under-museumed country, and museums, all museums, they're important. There's something that they contribute not only culturally, but actually commercially to many cities, and businesses sprout around them to support the needs of visitors. But in and of themselves, they attract people, and they're a great way to learn what a local culture is all about. And for those of you seeking to work in a museum, I agree with Mariles. It's a very creative post, a very creative job. I can speak from experience because I used to be also at Ayala Museum, and it was a very fun, creative type of job. And I think it's one of the, someone was talking about cool Japan. Well, I think culture is cool. Well, I think museums are one of the coolest jobs that you can possibly find. I want to thank all of you today for coming out here at AIM and in Lopez Case Room as well as the Aboitiz Tech Space, on Zoom, on Facebook. This has been one of our more interesting sessions. I want to thank our speakers, Mayor Wes Gatchallian. Thanks for coming all the way out here to Makati to tell us about your projects. Mariles, I know you're a lot closer, but you've been busy. But thank you very much, and I'm going to see you again on Friday. And Jeremy, always good to see you, and congratulations. 21 museums. I think it's great. We have lots to visit, and I think people should be proud about the National Museum. And it's really just getting better and better every visit. So thank you very much to all our speakers. Please join me in giving a warm round of applause. Thank you very much. And before I close, just a couple of reminders. One is I think we're going to flash a QR code for a feedback form. We appreciate the feedback. For those of you who are in need of a certificate of attendance, that's how you get one. You fill out the feedback form and you will get one. So thank you very much for that. We are going to continue and, have more labs for the rest of the year. I'll give you some sneak peek of the topics. One will be on electric vehicles, public transport, and mobility. I don't have a date yet, but that's going to be one topic. Another topic will be on basically on flood control. So those of you who have suffered through Typhoon Karina are going to be able to appreciate why we need better flood control in the city and flood management. There's a new procurement law, so this is important for public services. So we're going to also be talking about procurement law amendment and the PPP, public-private partnerships, and we'll also continue our labs on intelligent cities, how to create more intelligent cities. So on behalf of Liveable Cities and our partners, Globe Telecom, the League of Cities of the Philippines, and Asian Institute of Management, thank you very much for attending today. Final reminder, we do have snacks right across the hall here in the Fuller room. So in case you want to ask more questions, Velasco room. Wrong room, Velasco room, but it's across here, right? Just directly across the hallway here, we're serving snacks. So we're happy to get together and meet everybody and talk about livable cities and why museums matter. Thank you very much.
May we request everyone to please stay on your places, and we'll also request you to stand up for a photo up with our speakers also back in there. So we can stand up and converge to a little bit to the middle. Please. Okay. Okay, thank you. Again, snacks are served at the Velasco room. Our ushers will guide you there. Thank you.
According to the architect society,
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming.
Of course, did you hear our
Mariel from Globe. Yeah, we did the wave.
meron kami mini wave
That's us. Hindi namin alam na may booth mic. Kaya
It's really good. Ito yung nagdala, Mariles.
Ito ba yung
Ito yung nagdala. Kita-kita ko from
you can do it.
Is that collection?
Funny.